I know that you spent time in Izyum yesterday. What did you see there?
Yes, well, we were kept away from the scene of this mass grave, which is in the forest just outside Izyum. We did have a chance to spend time in the city centre, and I have to say, it doesn't surprise me that there's a mass grave there because the destruction is incredible. It's by far the worst, perhaps the most intense destruction that I've seen in the Ukraine war. The entire city centre, every building is pulverized very much. The church, has a beautiful golden dome that was smashed in. The administrative buildings in the town square are completely burnt out. Every single apartment block is a shell or burnt out or smashed up completely. The Russians really had to put a lot of effort in to capture this town in March, which was when all this damage was done. And we spoke to residents about, their experiences. We spoke to a man whose friend was killed with his entire family, or all 6 members of his family, his wife, 2 children, and grandparents, in the basement of their building, along with 50 others when it got a direct hit from a missile. So yes, in these bodies, we've had sort of various estimates of the numbers. We're told we'll get more details today. They are said to be of people killed in that initial attack on the town by the Russian artillery and air force. Yes, I should perhaps emphasize that there's they're not saying this stage these were people murdered by Russians. These are people killed in the original attack, although we did speak to people who thought there had been residents murdered by the Russians when they were there.
Gosh, okay, understood. With that in mind then, we mentioned this lightning-quick counteroffensive by Ukrainian forces. How do we assess that the progress of that?
Yeah, that seems to have sort of slowed a little bit. The Ukraine is very keen to consolidate what they gained in that rather unexpected push last week. They to sort of catch you up, to remind you, listeners, they were trying to take this town of Balaklia, which is just to the north of Izyum, as a way of sort of getting to Izyum and another fairly key junction called Kupiansk. Izyum and Kupiansk. I mean, if you probably can't visualize it, but if you they are very much the road and rail hubs for the area between the Donbass and Kharkiv, so they're very crucial cities, and they try to take Balaklia as a way to get to these 2 cities, but in fact, as you all know now, the Russians just caved, ran away, and they took not only all 3 cities but all the way up to the Russian border, retaking all of Kharkiv province. Very unexpected. They weren't expecting it themselves. So now they're sort of consolidating those gains, consolidating the border, obviously, because they've now reached the Russian border along a long stretch of the border, and then we'll see what they do next.
And Richard, what do you make of this face-to-face meeting between President Xi and President Putin? This Russia-China sort of collaboration continues to some extent, at least. This is their first face-to-face talk since the invasion of Ukraine, and I just wonder what you place as the significance of that.
Yeah, I think we'll probably never find out exactly what's said at this meeting. I mean, it's quite clear to me. I used to work in China years ago. From following Chinese politics, that China is not particularly pleased with Putin. I mean, he's been their strategic ally for years now, and the Russians, the Chinese, wanted Russia to be a sort of bulwark against American, ambitions and American attempts to democratize Asia, which obviously China saw as a threat, and they saw Russia as a sound ally against that. They have no desire, however, to find themselves in the firing line of American sanctions, for example, if they start providing Russia with weapons. They're quite happy for Russia to be somewhat weakened because they want it to be clear that China, are the number 1 rival to America, the number 1 superpower after America. Rather than Russia, but they don't want Russia to completely collapse and humiliate itself, and also, remove that bulwark between them and America. So I think there's a lot of ambiguity in that relationship, and there's certainly no suggestion that Xi Jinping is going to start, pouring large amounts of weapons into the war on Russia's behalf. He is, of course, buying Russian oil and gas, but at a substantial discount. So, the Chinese are doing well out of that as well.
Yeah.